All right, so here's what's going on. Linus Tech Tips, and if you're not familiar with the guy, he looks like that. I'm sure you've seen him before. If you are interested in anything tech-related on YouTube, then you have come across him. He runs a huge channel that is called Linus Tech Tips. I remember him being quite small, but it didn't last long. Like, he grew very quickly and became this, he has this huge empire. And you could see this, you know. It's been always clear, if you've been watching videos from Linus Tech Tips, I think, in my opinion, it's very clear that he's running this thing like a massive operation. They have warehouses, they have employees. Sometimes when you see the spaces, you know, they have offices, render farms, like server rooms. Obviously, it's a tech thing, but you know, it's a massive, massive operation that he was running. And in the past, he spoke about having millions, and he did these videos where he, like, I think tried to retire 5 or 6 times. Linus Sebastian, right? Like the guy himself, where he spoke to cameras like, yeah, it's time for me to step down and stuff. But it never really happened. He always kept going, teased us almost, creating more hype. And to be fair, like, he's a beloved character overall. I don't think that people would, 2 or 3 weeks ago, many people would have said, no, Linus Sebastian is like scum or anything horrible like that. Well, that has kind of shifted. Linus had kind of this reputation of like being like a nice guy, right? He's competent, he knows what he's doing, he's running a big operation, he's one of the big players on YouTube and all that. Now, the news is that Linus Tech Tips in a crisis with accusations of theft, lapses in ethics, and an allegation of harassment. I can't read that word. Linus Media Group CEO Taryn Tong tells The Verge an outside investigator will be hired to examine the harassment allegations. Okay, now, a lot of people sent me messages about this, okay? Also about today's live stream, and they were like, dude, you gotta talk about this because this is a lot like Rooster Teeth. People immediately compared it to Rooster Teeth because obviously it's a big media startup, a YouTube social media startup, right? That's very successful. One being comedy, one being tech focus, obviously. But, you know, you get the idea. These are big up-and-coming trending YouTube channels and these media factories, so to say. But is it really the same? Can we really jump to that conclusion? Okay, so I looked a little bit deeper into this. I mean, remember Rooster Teeth, right? There's like a whole chain of events. The thing with Kovic, the thing with Haywood, the thing with Mika Burton, then the thing with Caden. It seemed to be running deep in the company, okay? There were loads of allegations, loads of people coming forward saying things from racist treatment over to like anti-trans harassment, you know, all the way to anything almost you can imagine that happened allegedly at Rooster Teeth. Now, what do we know happened here? Okay, I mean, this stuff we read here doesn't read good. Then allegations of the harassment. Okay, so lapses in ethics. Now, most of this comes down to a post from Madison. No, I don't know her actual name, but I remember her from Linus Tech Tips actually. I tried to see. I think I had a post where they were like together, because she used to work with Linus. She used to work for LTT, and she is the person, as far as I'm aware, who's making these allegations, specifically the the harassment ones, the allegations of the harassing kind, if you know what I mean. You get the idea. So let's get into the ugly part of this story. So how hard are these allegations, right? Because I remember, for example, there were also allegations of kind of similar kind. It's not that big of an operation, but against Angry Joe. Don't know if you guys remember that. It was kind of a very short thing. It only lived for 1 or 2 days. But there was someone coming forward saying, hey, on this day, on this convention, Angry Joe did this and that to me. So there were these allegations for 1 day or 2 days on Twitter against Angry Joe. And then Angry Joe released a statement. He was like, we are aware of the allegations. These are not true. Okay, this is not right. We're going to put... And then you never heard of it again. And I don't think it was because he paid her off or something. It was because she lied. Okay, and he shut her down. I don't know if legally, but it was probably, I mean, obviously I don't know, but it looked like she kind of pulled back because it wasn't true. Now here in this particular case, speaking of Linus Tech Tips, you have Madison, who used to work at Linus Tech Tips, giving her report of what happened. And we're going to go through it. It's a little bit of a read, but I think it's important to kind of get an idea. And it will give you guys a pretty good idea. If you know about Linus Tech Tips and you watch the channel sometimes, it will give you a rough idea of what's going on behind the scenes at that company. It's a little bit like a window into that company. Okay, let's go. So Madison says, to stop the speculation and DMs I'm receiving, I choose to quit my role at Linus Tech Tips because it and the working environment I was facing were ruining my mental health. The number of daily items the social media role at the first time was expected to fill was incredibly high. So that's what she did. She was in a social media role. I was expected to post 3 tweets, 2 Instagram posts, and 2 TikToks minimum per day. I was also expected to plan, film, edit, and post 2 Floatplane exclusives per week. This included wrangling people to be in them when they were also just struggling to get their work done. I was also expected to manage, plan, and come up with, execute, get approval for, and schedule out all the sponsored content on the socials, not including YouTube, all while being told not to complain and that my job was fun. I cannot speak on what it was like, but they have an entire team working on seemingly what I was expected to accomplish alone. I misspoke originally when I stated I had signed an NDA. I thought the employee handbook acted as one. I am not a lawyer. I never publicly made any statements regarding my time there because I feared even more backlash from a community that was already attacking, defaming, and sending me death threats. Okay, that's like a strange thing for me, right? Like, Jesus, the Linus Tech Tip community has people that send people death threats. What kind of people are those? You know what I mean? That's a bit strange. I wouldn't have expected that. But okay, fair enough. I also feared for my future in this career, given that Linus Tech Tips is large and has big industry connections. That is true. My time at this company brought my mental health to an all-time low. You could talk to anyone who was around me during my employment and they would confirm it. I would not have recommended anyone I knew to work there, especially with my experience as a woman in the office. I was consistently belittled by certain members of upper management. My work was called dog shite, and I was called incompetent. When I would reach out to managers and try to get help with these situations, I would be told to put on my big girl pants and be more assertive. It doesn't matter if you think I am or I am not stupid. This behavior is not appropriate. After enough complaints from me, I was pulled into a meeting. Now, let's look what's going on here. Okay, so far. We're just judging what we've read so far. When I said earlier that Linus runs this thing like a big corporation and like a big thing, like a big machine, okay, a content production machine that returns revenue. It's a revenue machine, ultimately. Then you know that that shit is hard work, okay? I myself work not in that field, obviously, but in a similar field, you know, and I also had to start in a company where nobody knew who I was and whatnot, and you work incredibly hard. I would be working every night till 1 o'clock. It was insane. Okay, I wasn't belittled, you know. I mean, okay, the occasional Schwarzenegger joke happens, but I wouldn't call that belittling, and I don't think it's comparable to what Madison says here. It is messed up to call someone, hey, your work is dog shite, you know, or something like that, or you're incompetent. You just don't say these things. At the moment, these are allegations. We don't know if it is all true. This is what she's currently alleging, right? Against people are from higher management. You know what's sadder? This treatment is probably standard for the crushing majority of fields. But since these companies are way bigger, people just go on with their lives because they have less than zero power. That's kind of where I was going with my point. That's what I think. Now, them saying these insults to her, that's messed up. But the work ethics, there's a little bit... My point is, okay, I don't know Madison too well, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, and she is definitely the victim here, okay? I'm not going to try to turn this around, but just reading this, it feels like there's a little bit of a victim thing here going on as well. She's been treated like shit up to this point of her story. I don't know, just quit. Like, you can quit. You know, you're not... I get it. I think it's later she talks about how she was on a visa and stuff. It wasn't all that easy to just quit and leave, but still, you could probably quit. You know, there would have been a way. Locationary says, nothing surprises me these days. Seems like every organization is having these problems. Exactly. We've seen it like from Ubisoft. We've seen it from EA. We've seen it from Activision. I mean, this is just the video game sphere. So it's happening everywhere. That's my point. Okay. So far, okay, you had a shit experience. Am I gonna never watch Linus Tech Tips over this? No. So far. But she says then she was pulled into a meeting. Okay. So let's see what happened into that meeting. In that meeting, the writer's room was pointed to and I was asked, do you think any of these people would have a hard time getting a job? I said no. Keep in mind, this was about a month into working there. So it's just after a month. Keep that in mind as well, okay? She's being pulled into a meeting for complaining after working there for a month, okay? It's just another little point to make. I was scared. I remember asking, are you going to fire me? I was laughed at and told to stop being so pessimistic, as if my job and ability hadn't just been vaguely threatened. I was then asked to agree to a verbal no drama contract. A verbal no drama contract. The verbal part is important. There's no written contract. In this moment, I realized I was no longer considered part of the team. I was now a threat because I was putting up a fuss when I believed I was being treated unfairly and inappropriately. This verbal agreement wasn't right. It was behind the scenes warning with no record. Okay. And I agree with her there. Okay, this is probably correct. Like, obviously they didn't want to make this written, so there's a reason why. A warning that came very shortly after I had come forward stating I'd been inappropriately grabbed multiple times in the office, amongst other issues. Okay. I was barred from being in videos, so when you asked what happened, why wasn't she in more content, that's why. Now, as far as I'm aware, and we're going to keep reading, obviously. But as far as I'm aware, this is the only point in this chain of tweets where she's mentioning that she's been grabbed multiple times or touched inappropriately. Okay? Keep in mind, when we talk about Rooster Teeth and stuff like that, there are so many allegations. Stuff is literally piling up. There's so much going on. Who knows what's exactly true, but there are a lot of allegations. And here she is saying she's been inappropriately grabbed multiple times in the office. Now, sure, possible. I'm not saying that's not true, you know. It is absolutely possible that that's true and that happened, but it's very hard to prove. You know what I mean? I don't know, are there cameras all around the Linus Tech Tip office? Probably not. So someone's gonna say, no, I didn't touch your butt, and she's gonna say, yeah, you did. So what is that? If that's the only allegation that goes into that direction, like, of course it sucks. Probably it happened. I don't know. But I can't verify that. That cannot be verified. You know what I mean? And if that's the only thing that goes into that direction, I don't know, man. I don't know. There's this perplexing fear that people will leave Linus Tech Tips and start their own thing if given a platform. So if that platform could threaten negative things coming out about your company or you'd probably want them to squash it. You'd probably want to squash it too. This is super interesting, in my opinion. In my experience, there's a belief that everything you accomplish, no matter how much it is created by your own effort, is actually due to Linus giving you a platform. This was what I was told when I moved from Arizona to Vancouver to take this job, right? That's the point. So she was on a visa and stuff only for this job. Now check out how she's describing this perplexing fear that people, after having given a platform by Linus, by God Linus, the King Linus the First, right? The man who started it all, a little bit like Jesus in this company, I imagine his role. You know, whenever he enters the room, people are like losing their mind internally. And I've been following The WAN Show. I don't know if you guys are familiar with The WAN Show. It's a podcast, a tech podcast that Linus Tech Tips puts out. Been watching it for a long time, not regularly, but you can really see it's like Luke and Linus, right? These two guys. You can very, very clearly see like the power dynamic that's going on there. You know, even with someone like Luke, who is really such an essential member of the team. He's been around for so long. Linus is a kind of guy that, you know, he puts... That's my perception, okay? My opinion. I feel he's a guy that puts profit over everything, okay? I feel he's a guy that runs a company where you hire people and you hire 20 of them and you see that 7 immediately break in the first month. So you maybe give them a second chance. You do like this verbal agreement, no drama agreement, and you're like, all right. It's fucked up, okay? Don't get me wrong, it's fucked up. But that's how many companies are run. You hire all these people, those who break leave, and those who stay and can deal with the pressure will keep going and, you know, eventually maybe have less pressure or grow or rise in the ranks, make more money, okay? It's a way of running a company. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it should be the norm, but many, many companies are doing that, okay? So she clearly was struggling with what they put on her, okay? And maybe it was an insane amount. I mean, she's like, oh, look, now they have a whole team that apparently is doing the work that I was doing alone. Who knows if that is true, but at this point, it's hearsay, okay? And I'm not defending him. Like, if people in his office grab girls inappropriately, then that has to stop, okay? That's super messed up. Don't need to talk around it. Monkey, your headwear is irritating me so much. Okay, fine, I'm taking it off at this point. Taking it off. I guess the joke has worn itself down anyway. Christian Guerrero says, might only just be the beginning. People need the confidence to boost to speak out. That is very true, right? We've seen this with many other companies where one person comes out and also celebrities, and suddenly another one. That's what destroyed Andrew Callaghan, right? You guys remember All Gas No Breaks, Channel 5 it was, right? He hasn't done content in a long time. You know, one girl came out and said, yeah, that dude did that to me. Then another, and you couldn't even count them in the end. There were so many allegations from different girls that all told the same story. So it's like, okay, dude, that's not good. And then he disappeared as well. But let's keep reading where this is going, okay? Let's see where this is going. So the perplexing fear that people who leave Linus Tech Tips then start their own thing, right? That's also that. I think that's, sorry, just to come back. This is another, it feels to me like another Linus power trip. He knows he has such a big reach and platform that he can literally create people's future, right? He can platform people and have people in their videos, in his videos, make that decision. Now that people is known, now that person is known, now that person can open their own Twitch channel or whatever, and they start with like a good followership just because of him. He can switch that on, switch that off. If she's fuffing around and doesn't follow the rules of these crazy workloads, you know, you're not in front of camera anymore. Your career is over. You're not getting anything here in terms of social media reach. So again, it feels like weirdly power trippy and like just, you know what I mean? After it was publicly announced by Linus that he was hiring me without my knowledge or consent to that situation. Okay, that's strange. But also before I was even offered the job or shown the salary, I agreed and signed to the employment contract. Right, that she doesn't say it was a shit contract. Here, at least. I had asked and been told during my interviews that I would be allowed to monetize my YouTube channel and be allowed to join Floatplane in exchange for shutting down my Patreon. Once I moved, I was presented with an entirely new contract/handbook that I was not told existed. It detailed that I was given incorrect information and would actually have to make changes to my plans if I wanted to continue being employed at Linus Tech Tips. This was after I had moved entire countries, given up my visa statuses, and so I couldn't just go back. Okay, I don't know to what extent that is true. Look, if you're in Canada and you come from America, you can always say, I quit, dude, and go back. I mean, I don't know, maybe she doesn't hold an American passport. I don't know the circumstances, but that sounds a little bit dramatic, okay? That sounds a bit like, there's no way I'm chained to my desk. It's like, no, dude, I mean, it's not easy, I get it. You probably had to make some shitty compromises, but that which is not good. But some corrections were made as apologies for the miscommunication, but I was still upset. Later, I went to Linus about this and stated that the effort to remediate the situation wasn't sitting right with me. He told me perhaps I should change my priorities. I'm sure he said more than, hey, change your priorities, but fair enough. There she is, putting it in a sentence. He was in this instance referring to the fact that my brother had suddenly passed away not even a week before I moved for this job, and perhaps I should just ignore that I had been misled because that was more important. I cannot tell you how upset I felt about in this moment. Okay, so her brother died the week before. That sucks. I will not question whether that's true or not. I'm sure that is true, but she makes it sound like her brother passed away and she's super sad, and Linus is like, dude, just change your priorities. Maybe it was that way. I have a hard time believing that. Look, I just feel like there's a little bit of bias in how she puts these things. Sorry. I'm sorry. Okay? I'm just saying what I feel. The opportunities Linus Tech Tip presented to me were nothing in comparison to the day-to-day issues I was facing. It did not matter if I spoke to someone with evidence of abuse of power or inappropriate workplace behavior. It was considered tattletaling. I was actually called a tattletale. Okay, so where is this? Like, you brought evidence of abuse of power? Like, where is that? Why is this not attached here? Why, you know, if you're coming out with so much detail, where is that hard evidence that goes beyond your claims? You know what I mean? I was told I was bossy when I was trying to be assertive, like I was asked to. I was told I was arguing when I was trying to discuss my point of view. I was told to calm my teeth and stop being such a bitch, and other comments of similar effect. There were numerous instances of misinformation being given to me purposefully to negatively impact my work. I only know this because coworkers would tell me they overheard the actual information I should have been given. It felt like a horrible teenage drama movie. Now again, look, all this is not good. All this sucks. I don't want to marginalize these things. But dude, this shit happens everywhere. The insults maybe go a bit far. Is it good? No, it sucks. Okay, it's shit, but you know, sure, people tell each other sometimes, come on, man, you gotta man through this. Okay, they say, don't be such a bitch. Okay, but the thing is the same. These jobs are high-pressure jobs with super tight deadlines all the time. It is stress. It is stress. And you're jumping into it. What did you expect? You think you go to Vancouver working for Linus Tech Tips and you finish at like 5:30 and go to a bar and have a cocktail or what? Like, that's not how this works. I don't know in what senior role she was or like what exactly the role was she was hired for. The seniority, I mean. But come on, dude. Like, some of the stuff she says is fucked up. Again, don't get me wrong. But, dude, you gotta put some actions to your words, you know, if you make claims like that. Blakey Busy says, feels like a disgruntled employee with a hit piece from my point of view. Can't say that. There is a possibility. I don't want to put this on her and say, you know, this is just a... There is a possibility, but it certainly feels biased. That's where I agree with you, okay? It feels super, super biased. Not like some of the other reports we heard from other people accusing other people of similar things that are quite factual and seem... I mean, look, sure, if someone abused you, it's hard to be, like, non-biased, obviously, right? But still, more factual. It feels like she's really trying to implement some stuff here. So, yeah, your point about, like, a disgruntled employee is probably not wrong. Sounds like she needs to calm her tits down. Says it's not funny. That's not funny. Okay? Okay, it is a bit, actually. Calm your tits, brah. You go calm them tits, brah. Where was I? It felt like a teenage drama movie. Yeah, okay. I can relate to that. I have worked in offices that feel like fucking teenage drama. It's unbelievable. Work from home was a whole issue. If you took 3 minutes to answer a personal email, you could get in trouble. Happened to me. I have a hard time believing that, but there you go. There's a system of micromanaging and level of distrust because of the amount of content they have to push out daily. It is so insane. No one gets a break. There's a crescendo moment coming, guys. I remember getting told off for taking my sick days, as in the days you're entitled to. This no days off grind set culminated in a real moment I realized I had to leave. I purposefully cut my leg open so badly I had to go to ENR and get it stapled back together. Okay? Okay, do you know what I mean? Like... Like, you don't see another way of, like, what you could do besides, like, cutting your leg open to get a day off? Like, that's what we're doing here? Like, there's... Do you know what I mean? I get it. You're on this visa. You came to Vancouver. You did a lot of shit. You don't want to just, like, leave and stuff. But, bro, no. Like, if you think it's somehow a valid option to cut your leg open just to go to ENR so you have a valid reason not to appear at work, I kind of question... a little bit the thinking process behind that. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not a healthy thinking process. I get it that the pressure was high and that they didn't want to give you a day off even you asked, and they made fun of you for taking a day off when you're ill, but that's a bit... That's a thing that sounds really, really not right, and she twists it into them doing something... I don't know. This whole thing is... So she cut herself... and went to ENR, okay? It was genuinely the only way in my mind to take a day off without being harassed for a reason why. I had spoken to managers about how I was struggling and how the workload was too much for one person, but I was belittled and told, you just have bad time management skills. That's an actual recording of what they said. There are so many instances that led up to that moment. Some of them I have replayed over and over, asking myself what I did do wrong. How could I have changed the situation? But I don't think I could have. I was not treated fairly, and in the moment I couldn't even see that because I was told that I was the problem by people I had looked up to for years. I had co-workers come to me saying, I didn't like how you were treated and I'm glad you got out. So obviously when she writes that, she hasn't been working there for a while. So only then I realized it wasn't me. I haven't shared any of this besides with my closest friends' family because I couldn't at the time, blah, blah, blah. It hits to my mental health. I couldn't deal with how small and worthless the job had made me feel and to push out all some mediocre shit post, blah, blah, blah. I'm still scared shitless of what the response will be, since I am a woman and have already been called dramatic. I'm not stating what happened to me because I'm seeking clout. I'm stating it because it has been eating away from me for 2 years. I believe that, okay? I'm not saying she's doing this for clout. I don't think so. I think she really experienced something. She's probably hurt. She's a little bit of like a disgruntled employee, like Blakey Beer said, and that's why now I don't know. I'm just speculating, obviously, right? But I do believe that when she says, I'm not just doing this for clout, you know, I'm not doing this for clout. We're almost done. This is the end of it. There are genuinely amazing, compassionate, and incredibly intelligent people who work at this company. It sucks that ego and bottom line slowly destroy some of them, blah, blah, blah. I didn't even want to say anything of fear of hurting these people and their employee, but at this point, it's hurting myself, keeping it all constantly bombarded with questions from people, blah, blah, blah. So that's why she put it out there. Damn, reading this entire story makes me hope you are okay. It's a shame situations like that can appear, and for the Linus Tech Tips part. So, okay. So that's it. Okay. So that is the story. These are the allegations, okay? This is the whole thing, basically. There's a bit more, right? There's like Gamers Nexus who did a video about Linus Tech Tips, which kicked kind of the whole thing off. So there's more to this. They also had this thing going on. I didn't look too deep into it, but where they apparently stole a prototype and sold it or something, had these ethical questionable moves going on, right? Which were then also pointed out by Gamers Nexus. So that kind of stuff has been going on, and it sucks and it's not good. But these calls for, oh, Linus Tech Tips is kind of the new Rooster Teeth, and it's on that level. It doesn't feel like it to me. Keep in mind, like, it really feels like these two lines where she says, I have been inappropriately touched in the office. That's the thing that is now everywhere called sexual harassment. Now, I'm not saying it is sexual harassment, okay? But it's like a claim. It's just someone saying something. And reading the whole thing, it feels very biased. It feels very much like she's not happy to have worked there. And with the results, she expected more. She's disappointed. Not saying that's the reason, but you get the idea. Ultimately, it really depends on where your threshold is. Do you blindly believe a woman like that? You know, do you blindly say, yeah, no, she says that, it's true? Or do you give Linus the benefit of the doubt? I don't know. I think what can be said probably fairly safely is that working for a company like Rooster Teeth or Linus Tech Tips sucks, okay? Unless you're for some reason a big head honcho or some kind of contractor who's super senior and you get hired for crazy amounts of money, then your life is probably fine. But working there to edit videos and push out content sucks balls. It sucks. And it has to be clear. Everyone, if you want to make video games, you want to work for Activision, you want to be an environment artist for Call of Duty, your life is gonna suck. You're gonna work most of your day in a dark office somewhere, probably, building little fucking planters, you know what I mean? That go in a corner and blow up. That's your life. You rarely see your friends, you rarely see your family or do anything that you actually enjoy. That's the life. And I always feel like, to an extent, there's just this naivete of a lot of people that think, oh, you know, I'm kind of walking blue-eyed into this new job at Linus Tech Tips or Rooster Teeth or any big corporation like that, and you're not gonna get fucked hard. You know what I mean? It's pretty clear that that's what's going on there. I have to admit that I'm torn, okay? I don't blindly follow what this woman says. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying this reads weird. I think it's a wild overreaction. There are also these allegations of them not measuring correct, which is obviously like, that's a whole story in itself, right? Because obviously a channel like Linus Tech Tips is about accurate results when you want to buy a graphics card or a board or a hard drive or whatever. So apparently they fucked up there a few times. But this kind of sits separate. It's like, okay, the content, I'm sure this is a wake-up call for them. They're going to triple measure from now on and make sure that all the employees work even harder to make sure there's never any mistake in terms of the numbers when they test hardware. That's one side. And then the other side is just these personal allegations of like misconduct at the workplace and so on. So I do separate those two personally, but yeah, it's messed up. I don't think Linus needs to be cancelled or anything over this. It's something people can talk about. You know what I mean? It's tough to make a call being on the outside. If the assault allegations, says C-Mace, are legit, they need to be handled by the company. Yeah, or the police, you know, depending on how severe they are. But if you remove that, the rest sounds like a slightly unhinged person who wasn't able to handle this situation. It's so hard to judge with only one side of the story. That's a very good point. So I hope that we will get more of it, right? That we will get more of the story. Maybe Linus comes forward or the team and they make a statement kind of addressing some of the points. I doubt it, but it's a possibility that that happens. So yeah, that's basically the Linus Tech Tips story. I thought it was wild because Linus has always been like this white knight almost that never had anything on him. Yet here we are. I don't really watch his content much anymore. Look, if I watch a tech video about like what graphics card is good or whatnot, then keep it factual. You know, Gamers Nexus, in my opinion, does a much better job at that. They try too hard to be funny and have all their quirks in there and try to turn it into a mixture of information and comedy. Shut the fuck up. I don't want that. Just give me the information, make it digestible. Think about how you transport the information so I take away most from this video. I don't want to hear Linus cringe jokes. And that's another thing. His whole channel, like all the humor that they try to inject into their videos and podcasts, it's all just cringe. It's this nerd cringe stuff. And it's just like factually not funny. Like it's just not. Okay, you can try to make it funny, but it's a disaster. So yeah, screw that. Yeah, I don't know. But he's still wildly successful. His numbers are insane.